Welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Today we're going to be talking about the Week 0 big game, Georgia Tech versus Florida State in Dublin, Ireland. Obviously, the overseas game that we all watched, the only really watchable game in Week 0. There's a few other kind of fun matchups to watch with FCS level opponents, some lower D1 teams. But overall, the Florida State game was the biggest game, the biggest talking point of the weekend. Before we get started, though, if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. We are officially back as far as college football goes. So we're going to be going live every week. Starting next week, we're going to go live after week 1 games. May even do before the game start as well to do our predictions. But we just kind of want to put this video out, kind of talking about the upset. But Dad, I'm going to kick the floor to you first. What is your takeaway from not only Florida State's point of view, but also Georgia Tech?
Yeah, so the first part, Florida State's point of view, I think what you just really saw was that attrition really killed them. Again, when you talk about all the players that they lost from last year, you guys know the names. Trying to replace all that again in the recruiting portal, the transfer portal, it's just that's not a sustainable way to maintain championship level football. Kudos to last year's team, but this isn't last year's team. DJU, obviously, I think is I'm going to say a good quarterback. I don't want to knock him. 19 for 27, 193 yards. But they did not, and obviously we talked about this during the game, they did not push the ball down the field until really late. Really that last drive that when they scored to tie the game. That's the first time they really pushed the ball down the field. That Georgia Tech offensive line dominated, controlled the line of scrimmage. You're talking about 190 yards rushing. They were able to push around that Florida State team. Again, you're talking about a Florida State defensive line that lost a lot of great players. Jared Verse, a top draft pick this past year. They lost a lot of players. The fact that Georgia Tech was able to push around Florida State to that extent, to me, is a little bit shocking. Hines King played a great football game. Just his ability to extend plays, sometimes running out of trouble. And then he just made some plays with his arms. Not a big game, 146 yards. But when you mix that with another 54 yards rushing and just his ability to extend some plays and extend some drives, he played a masterful game. And Georgia Tech was able to pull it off. I don't think there was anything crazy in this game that where you say, they didn't deserve that. They deserved that win. For most of the game, outside of the first drive, Georgia Tech really dominated this game. Florida State was the team playing from behind. I always thought, just based off of the name, the rank, that Florida State was going to come back. But they got pushed around. I don't think that, and again, this may be kudos to Dabo Swinney. I don't think, hey, I'm going to reload in the transfer portal is a sustainable way to maintain championship level football. What's your thoughts, Steven?
Yeah, so I don't want to talk too much about Clemson because that's not what we're talking about here. But as far as the transfer portal goes, I do agree with that. I think we saw Colorado go from 1-11 to 4-8. And that was some big jump, which I didn't think it was a great big jump because I think they could have done a lot better. But they did majority of their work in the portal. We saw Florida State go undefeated in the regular season last year, and then win the conference championship game at 13-0, and mostly due to the transfer portal. But I think you have to look at the common denominator between 2022 and 2023 Florida State, and that was Jordan Travis. I think not having Jordan Travis now is going to play a major factor. People are so high on this Florida State team. I told everyone, this Florida State team is not going to be very good this year. You guys can paint however picture you want to paint for Georgia Tech and say Georgia Tech is going to give other teams trouble. At the end of the day, Georgia Tech's over-under is at 5.5. Florida State's is at 10.5 or 9.5. So this game should not have been close on a neutral site. Nonetheless, there were more Florida State fans than there were Georgia Tech fans. They were a 10.5 point favorite. This game should not have been close. I think overall, my takeaway from, I'll give the Georgia Tech side first, is I do think this team is going to be a lot better than 5.5 wins. I think this is going to be a pretty much a lock for a bowl game type team. Now I could see them losing games they shouldn't as well, because I think week 0 or week 1, however you want to call it, jitters played a factor too. Both teams were rusty. So I do kind of give credit, or I don't punish them, both teams, and Florida State looking too bad, because it is week 0, it is week 1. No matter who you play against, you're going to look a little rusty. That's just, it's your first real live contact other than spring ball. So I do understand that. But at the end of the day, as the game kind of progressed, like you said, Georgia Tech just seemed to hold the momentum and control and have a firm grasp of the game. I think in the first half, DJ was 11 for 12, but all 12 passes averaged out to be negative yards in the air. That makes no sense to me. That means you're literally throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage all 12 times in the first half. And people love to, knock DJ on how he can't make reads and how he can't be a championship level quarterback. I've said that. But at the end of the day, if your coaching staff is not giving you the opportunity to show that you can do it, you can't do anything. If the play calls are to hike the ball and look laterally and throw the ball to your running back or your tight end, that's not your fault. It's not your fault that the numbers show that you're throwing the ball line of scrimmage. That's all play calling wise. I also understand the offensive coordinator was suspended or something weird like that, so they didn't have the offensive coordinator, I believe. So that could have played a factor. But we saw at the end of the game when the going got tough and the times were calling for it, they were pushing the ball down the field and they were making a bit of a couple plays, pass interference, a couple of big completions to Malik Benson to get him in the red zone. But at the end of the day, this is a Georgia Tech team. This isn't Clemson. This isn't Notre Dame, Miami, or Florida. I can point out 4 games on this schedule that I have them losing now. I don't see them beating a Clemson, Miami, or Notre Dame. That's 3 right there, and they already lost to Georgia Tech. I think the Florida game is going to be a very tough matchup. It's an SEC opponent. If you think Georgia Tech is going to control the line of scrimmage, wait till you see an SEC team at the line of scrimmage. I just don't think that's going to be a very good look for Florida State. And I'm not saying Florida State is going to go 6-6. So please, Seminole fans, don't think that's what I'm saying. But I said from the jump, this team was not going to be in the playoffs. I did not believe this team was going to be a 10-win team. Although they had a lot of people out in that bowl game, I looked at that bowl game as this is the future of Florida State, not a 60-point loss week in and week out. But all of those players that sat are no longer here. You didn't have players who were on the team this year didn't just decide to opt out of that bowl game just for the hell of it. If they were intending on coming back this year, they would have opted in and played that game. Yeah. And those players that played in that bowl game were on the roster this year. So the idea that, they just didn't have that many people. Yeah, those people were all your production. Florida State comes into the season ranked 84th returning production. That is not good at all. I think, like I said, when you look at the ACC kind of hierarchy, Florida State was at the top. To me, I don't think they're even going to have a bid for the ACC title game at this point. I think they're going to lose multiple ACC games. With Clemson and Miami not playing each other, I think that lines up perfectly for those 2 teams to meet in the ACC title game. Now, could something crazy happen in Clemson just absolutely – have this floor fall out from under them? Of course. We saw it the last 2 years. Could Miami have the same concept? Yes. But with Florida State, with the production that they lost and the pieces they brought back in, I can't point to anyone on this team that I can look at and be like, yeah, that's the guy who's going to carry them. We can look at a team like Miami with Cam Ward, the top 5 to 10 quarterback. We can look at Clemson with their entire offensive line damn near coming back, as well as Phil Maffa and their defense. With Florida State, you lose your key pieces on both sides of the ball. I would say the only glaringly positive thing that I saw in this game was the fact that they have a great kicker. To me, I think their kicker hit 2 really long field goals. Yeah. So it reminded me of Roberto Aguayo. But I think when you look at their offense looked terrible and their front 7 looked really bad. And I thought personally their front 7 was what they're going to lean on heading into this year. Having a really good defense from last year, I thought that was going to be the key piece for the success. But the way Georgia Tech moved them off the ball, I don't think Georgia Tech is in the top 6 of the teams they're going to play this year, if that makes sense. They're going to play 12 teams. I think they're in the bottom 6.
Quick look at it. I think Boston College is a decent team. They're probably better than Georgia Tech.
It's definitely close.
Memphis is probably better than Georgia Tech. SMU's probably in that same conversation. I think we would agree Clemson is probably better than Georgia Tech. I'll skip Duke. I think Miami's better, Notre Dame's better, and Florida's better.
So there's 6-7 teams that we would say are either better or just on par with Georgia Tech. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And although I think Memphis doesn't have the star powers as Georgia Tech, you have to look at play styles. Georgia Tech went from a triple option team 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe 3 around there, to now they're a team that's running jet sweeps and stuff like that. And they essentially beat you at your own game. Florida State was running sweeps and screens and bubble routes and all types of misdirections in the backfield. Georgia Tech did that. And I would say also the game that King played yesterday reminded me so much of the Riley Leonard versus Clemson game. It reminded me so much of it. The way it wasn't like the numbers were eye popping. He just made critical plays when the plays needed to be made. So I don't know what Florida State does at this point.
So the only thing I will say, if I'm a Florida State fan and I want to take a little positivity out of this, I think what you say is when we did start pushing the ball down the field, we looked a little bit better. I think they'll probably come out with a little bit more of an aggressive game plan going forward. So you hope, obviously, with the 12-team playoff, I don't think Florida State's out of it.
No.
And I think you say with some chemistry things, we can get better. This isn't the end all be all like seasons past. They still have an opportunity to make some noise. The concerning part is that this is a conference loss. And I think not only a conference loss, but a bad conference loss with a team that we probably had in the lower half of that conference. So if they do not win the conference, even if they go on to be a 11-2, 10-3, 10-2 team, I think this may hurt them in tiebreakers. I think a neutral field game may hurt them in tiebreakers. The only reason that I think that even in that situation, it might be okay is because it's so early in the season. But you got to start pushing the ball down the field. Norvell, who I think is a very good coach, has to open this playbook up. DJ looked pretty good when you did push the ball down the field. He was able to make a lot of those passes. I think that has to be your game plan. That, like you mentioned, the backwards pass, jet sweep stuff, cool. I think part of this was they underestimated Georgia Tech a little bit. I think they just thought, hey, we can out-athlete you. We can out-physical you. We're going to do a lot of things where we're not going to take risks, but we're going to put our athletes, and Georgia Tech wasn't having that. I think going forward, hey, we gotta go for it. We got to go for it from the very beginning. We got to play with an aggressive play style, and we got to let DJU fling that thing a little bit.
Also, I saw a lot of kind of media outlets and predictions for the season for Florida State saying that they're going to lean heavily on their offensive line, their experienced offensive line, their run game. They ran the ball 31 times and averaged 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Like, there was running back by committee. You saw Toafili, you saw Lucas, you saw Roydell Williams. We saw DJU run the ball a bit. And you're averaging 3 yards a carry and you're not pushing the ball. So it's not like a situation where we have, I'll use, for example, Wisconsin. They run the ball every play and they're getting 4 or 5 yards a pop. They don't need to throw the ball. In this case, Florida State, you were up 14-13 or down 14-13 or something like that. It was close, right around there. And you weren't taking control of the game with this run game and you weren't pushing the ball down the field. So I want to know, this could be a hot take. At what point do they steer away from DJ? If let's say, because we saw Dabo do it after he was the number one quarterback coming out of the class, and it's not like we were 0-4 when Clemson benched DJ. Now, do you see how he looks against Boston College and Cal? Because even if, let's say, you beat a Boston College 27-20, I don't think that's convincing, especially if DJ doesn't have a superb showing.
Now, I'm gonna to credit, I'm gonna say there's a little bit of a difference. You're talking about Brock Glenn, who probably is, I guess, second on that depth chart. I don't know. But the difference was K was a top recruit. So just like the Trevor Lawrence thing, there were people that wanted to see K get in. And as DJ started to struggle, I don't think there's that clear cut, oh my goodness, all Florida State fans want to see this guy. So there may be a little bit longer of a hook for DJ versus, like I said, this is almost like was it Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence thing?
No, it was
who did Trevor Lawrence follow? Kelly Bryant.
Yeah.
I think because that was such a generational talent, and again, K came in with that hype. I'm not going to say he's Trevor Lawrence, but he came in with that level of hype. I think that made Dabo give a quicker hook than I think you're going to see with this team. I think the problem is I don't think DJ played bad, especially if what he was doing was what were the plays that were being called. Now, if he was checking those down by himself, then maybe there's some concern. But if he was, the throws he made, and especially when he did push the ball downfield, were not bad. He didn't lose this game. the early offense and the early offensive plays, again, if those were the plays that were being called, that's what really hamstrung DJ.
Yeah, I'm gonna also say I'm not a DJ hater. Obviously, I'm a Clemson fan. I have nothing against him. I'm still a fan of him. I don't think he's the reason why they lost personally.
No.
So I'm not saying that I would bench him because I think he had a good season at Clemson before he got benched. 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions is not bad. 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions at Oregon State is not bad. So I think when you look at what he does, I think he's just a superb game manager. He doesn't do anything crazy great. He doesn't do anything really piss poor. But I just think they have to be better in the run game, and they have to be better defensively, and they have to be able to push the ball down the field at the end of the day. And I know that, that encompasses a lot of your team, but if you would have just made a couple of different calls here and there, got a stop or two in a different situation, we would be looking at this team a lot differently. But based on what I saw, like I said, this is probably the 4th or 5th best team in the ACC, in my opinion. And again, that could be recency bias because that's all we've seen. Clemson could look really bad against Georgia next week, so you never really know.
I'm also flipping. I think what every team in the ACC who has Florida State on their schedule saw is, let's beat them in the trenches. We can beat these guys up, because I don't think this Georgia Tech offensive line is a 5-star studded offensive line. So if you feel like, hey, we can beat these guys up playing power football and running the ball at them, I think you're going to see a lot of teams take that on against Florida State, which is where, if they can't fix that, if they can't play strong in the trenches, they may have problems.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Obviously, I'm a Clemson fan. I look forward to that Clemson-Florida State game. But the biggest game for me that concerns Florida State is that Notre Dame game. I don't at this point, I don't
Notre
see
Dame
it.
Style.
Yeah, Notre Dame is literally a punch in the mouth. I'm going to beat you within the 2 yards of the offense and defensive side of the line of scrimmage. And I just, based on what I saw, I don't see it. We saw DJ struggling against Notre Dame at Notre Dame 3 years ago. So I don't see it happening. And that Clemson team, in my opinion, had way more weapons in this Florida State offense. We're relying on a 100-yard career receiver in Malik Benson to be your go-to guy. Not saying that he can't be, because he's an Alabama product, but I don't see, the skills that he has on the outside, the toolbox he has on the outside.
He looked pretty good.
Yeah, but I don't know if Malik Benson, because outside of Malik Benson, you have Roydell Williams and you have Jalen Lucas. I just don't know if there's enough in DJ's kind of arm's reach to be able to compete against these top teams and really top defenses, because I think Clemson and Notre Dame are both going to be top 5 or so defenses in college football, and you play both of them this year. So I look forward to seeing how this kind of season unravels for Florida State. Obviously, a tough loss to start the year. Their season's not over, though. If you win out, you still control your own destiny. Even if you lose one more game, you still control your own destiny. So although I hate Florida State with everything, with every fiber in my being, I still understand that there's still a chance and a way for them to make it, to the end. So Florida State fans, let us know in the comment section what you guys think. Georgia Tech fans, how excited are you? And if you guys are excited, about college football being back, make sure you guys drop something in the comment section for us. And we'll see you guys at the live show this upcoming week. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.